If you were born before 1961, this is one of those updates you really don't want to brush past because it directly affects your state pension. And for many people, it could change what they receive or how smoothly their payments arrive. Over the past few days, there's been a lot of quiet discussion, mixed messages, and confusion around what's changing, who it applies to, and whether action is needed. Some pensioners are hearing about reviews, others about adjustments, and many are left wondering the same thing. Does this affect me? And should I be worried? Now, before panic sets in, let's slow this down. This is not about sudden cuts or anything dramatic overnight, but it is about updates that matter, especially if you're already receiving your state pension or are right around that stage. Small changes in how things are checked, calculated, or processed can make a real difference, particularly when you're relying on that income month to month. What makes this update important is that it doesn't apply to everyone in the same way. Two people born just months apart can sometimes be treated differently under pension rules, and that's where confusion usually starts. Some people may notice nothing at all, while others could see questions raised, letters issued, or timelines adjusted. And let's be honest, when official letters arrive or payments don't land exactly when expected, it can be stressful. No one wants uncertainty when it comes to their pension. That's why in this video, we're going to go through what this update actually means, why people born before 1961 are being mentioned specifically, and what signs you should look out for, without jargon, without scare tactics, and without guessing. By the end, you'll know whether this is simply background noise or something that genuinely deserves your attention this week. And most importantly, you'll know how to stay one step ahead rather than reacting after the fact. So stay with me, because once you understand the full picture, it becomes much clearer and far less worrying than some of the headlines make it sound. Now that we've set the scene, let's talk calmly and clearly about what's actually going on. Because once you understand the background, a lot of the confusion around this update starts to make sense. When people hear state pension update and see a specific birth year mentioned, it's natural to assume something dramatic is happening. In reality, what we're seeing is part of an ongoing process where pension records, eligibility rules, and payment systems are being reviewed and refined. These kinds of updates don't always make headlines, but when they do, the wording can sometimes sound more alarming than the reality. For those born before 1961, the reason this group keeps coming up is because it sits right on the boundary between different pension rules. Over the years, the state pension system has gone through multiple changes, including shifts in state pension age, the move from the old basic pension to the new state pension, and adjustments linked to national insurance records. People born before 1961 often fall into overlapping categories, which means their records can be more complex than someone who entered the system later under a single consistent set of rules. One of the most important things to understand is that this update does not mean the government is suddenly rewriting pension law overnight. Instead, it's about how existing rules are applied and checked. The Department for Work and Pensions regularly reviews pension cases to make sure payments match a person's record. That can include checking contribution histories, confirming eligibility for certain additions, and ensuring that payments are being issued correctly. For many pensioners, these checks happen quietly in the background without any noticeable impact. However, for some people, especially those whose working lives included gaps, caring responsibilities, self-employment, or time spent abroad, a review can bring questions to the surface. This doesn't automatically mean there's a problem. In many cases, it's simply about clarification or confirmation. But when people hear that an update applies to those born before 1961, it naturally raises concern because pensions are not something anyone wants uncertainty around. Another reason this update matters is timing. Many pensioners are already keeping a close eye on their finances due to rising living costs, winter expenses, and changes to household budgets. When money is tight, even the suggestion of a change can feel unsettling. That's why it's important to separate routine administrative updates from actual changes to entitlement. Most people in this age group will continue receiving their state pension exactly as before, on the same schedule, without any interruption. That said, there are situations where people might notice communication from the Department for Work and Pensions. This could come in the form of a letter asking for confirmation of details, a request to check information, or a notice explaining how a figure has been calculated. These letters can look formal and sometimes intimidating, but they are often part of standard procedure. The key thing is not to ignore them. Taking the time to read and respond can prevent small issues from becoming bigger ones later on. It's also worth mentioning that some pensioners born before 1961 may still be transitioning into retirement or have deferred their state pension. Deferral rules and calculations can add another layer of complexity, particularly when combined with older pension systems. If you've delayed claiming your pension, or if you switched from one arrangement to another, that's another reason why your case might be reviewed or referenced during updates like this. A common question people ask is whether this update could mean a reduction in payments. For the vast majority of pensioners, the answer is no. State pension payments are protected by existing rules, and reductions don't happen casually or without clear reasons. In fact, in some cases, reviews uncover underpayments rather than overpayments. There have been instances in recent years where pensioners were found to have been underpaid due to historic record errors, particularly among older age groups. Reviews help correct those situations. This is why accuracy matters so much. The pension system relies heavily on data collected over decades. Records from many years ago were not always digitized in the way modern systems are, and that means occasional discrepancies can arise. When they do, the goal is to resolve them fairly. While the process can feel slow or bureaucratic, it's designed to ensure that people receive what they're entitled to under the law. Another area that often causes confusion is how state pension interacts with other income. Some pensioners receive additional support, private pensions, or benefits alongside their state pension. An update to pension records doesn't automatically affect those other sources, but it can sometimes prompt people to review their overall financial picture. That's not a bad thing. Knowing exactly where you stand can help you plan more confidently and avoid surprises. It's also important to be cautious about misinformation. When updates like this circulate online, they can quickly be exaggerated or misunderstood. Headlines may suggest urgent action or major changes, when in reality the situation is far more measured. That's why it's always best to rely on official information and take time to understand what applies to your specific circumstances rather than assuming the worst based on a headline alone. If you're unsure whether this update affects you, one practical step is to review your state pension information. Checking your payment statements, confirming your national insurance record, and making sure your contact details are up to date can all help ensure things run smoothly. These are simple actions that give you peace of mind and put you in control rather than waiting for something to happen. For those who do receive communication from the Department for Work and Pensions, responding calmly and promptly is usually the best approach. If something doesn't make sense, seeking clarification is perfectly reasonable. You're entitled to understand how your pension is calculated and why decisions are made. Asking questions doesn't put you at risk. It helps ensure everything is correct. It's also worth remembering that not all updates are negative. Sometimes changes or reviews lead to adjustments that benefit pensioners, whether through corrected payments or clearer information. While the process might feel inconvenient, the long-term aim is stability and fairness. As we move through the rest of the year, updates like this are likely to continue as systems evolve and records are modernized. That doesn't mean constant disruption. It means the system is being actively managed. For pensioners born before 1961, awareness is the key takeaway. Not alarm, not panic, just awareness. Understanding what's happening allows you to spot genuine issues if they arise and ignore unnecessary noise when they don't. It puts you in a stronger position to manage your finances confidently and avoid stress caused by uncertainty. And while it's natural to feel concerned when pensions are mentioned, knowledge really does take away much of that worry. So, if you were born before 1961, take this update as a prompt to stay informed rather than a reason to worry. Most people will see no change at all. A smaller number may be asked to confirm details, and an even smaller group may see adjustments that reflect their true entitlement. In every case, being informed and engaged is the best response. As we continue, we'll look more closely at what signs to watch for, how to recognize when an update actually affects you, and how to respond in a way that keeps everything running smoothly. Once you understand how these updates work, they become far less intimidating and much easier to handle. V.